Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name is Matt. This beautiful green behemoth is my 1953, I think it is, Rio M35A2. I believe it started life as an M35A1, that's why it's a 1953. I'm a little fuzzy on my history on these things, but anyways, this has been a channel favorite. You guys seem to really like this truck. I love this truck, but it has been sitting here all summer, and that is because it's got some issues. The last time we had this truck out, I think might have actually been clear back in the fall of last year, and basically a year ago now at this point. Anyways, at that time, we had it running, we had it driving, I had the brakes working, and I took it down the road and was driving it back and everything was going fine, and all of a sudden, the engine locked up on me. We basically skidded to a stop, and after letting it sit there and cool down for probably a half an hour, I was actually able to get the thing fired back up and drove it home. Kind of a fluke, I don't know. The engine never got hot according to the gauge. We were a little low on antifreeze, but not nearly low enough to where you would think you could do serious engine damage. I mean, still had plenty of water in the radiator and the rest of the block. But part of the reason we were low on antifreeze is because this radiator is no good. You can see this is all wet down here, and actually up until recently there was green coolant just kind of chilling in that little lip right there. I guess these radiators are pretty well known for going bad. They get a lot of vibration through them, and they're known for cracking apart and leaking. So it's a really cool truck, but it does need some work. So another issue we had with this truck last year when we were playing with it was it would not start without a little help from the ether bunny. Once it would stay running for a little bit, you could keep it running, but it really didn't like to idle until it was good and hot, and then we would drive it. And it felt to me like it was kind of gutless. Like, I've never driven one of these before. This is the only one that I've driven, but it just felt like it should have more power. And my buddy Clint from CNC Equipment was out here checking it out, and he said there's definitely a possibility that the injection pump could be 180 degrees out of time, because these engines will actually run with the pump 180 degrees out. Clint says one of the telltale signs if your pump is 180 degrees out of time is that the engine won't start without some ether, and it's gutless. I said, well, we fit the bill. So in today's video, I'm gonna try to get this thing fired up and drive it into the big shop, and hopefully we're gonna be able to rip into this thing. I got a new radiator we're gonna put in it, thanks to Clint from CNC Equipment. And while the radiator's out, I'm gonna try to get to that injection pump and confirm that it is or isn't out of time. If it is out of time, we're gonna have to take it off, get it into time, put it back on. Anyways, nothing to it but to do it. Let's get this thing fired up. Fingers crossed. I have no idea if the batteries are even charged. Like I said, it's been sitting here for about a year. All right, I'm gonna apologize in advance. The warning buzzer for low air pressure on these trucks is brutally loud. I'm gonna do my best to pull it down in the edit, but it is loud. So headphone users, you've been warned. Do we have power? We do have power. Little ether, contact. Boy, it started pretty good. We got to be pretty quick here because I don't think we have any antifreeze right now. All right, you guys saw how fast the engine just died there. I did not kill the engine. As soon as I let off the throttle, it just shuts right off. Until this thing is really good and hot, it will not idle. You have to keep it at like at least probably half throttle to keep it alive. It keeps wanting to chug out. So that to me sounds more like a fuel issue as far as maybe getting some air into the system. There's a fuel density compensator on these trucks that is also problematic, so we're going to bypass that as well today. Well, the good news, I guess, is everything still looks just as tidy under here as it did when I put it away last year. We did 2 videos on this truck last year on the channel, and if you haven't seen those, you probably want to go back and check those out. I'll put a link to them down in the description. But basically, I just went through and serviced the truck, changed the filters and whatnot, and got it ready to run, and running was presenting some problems to us. So we never got any further with it last year. I had some other priorities on the mind. The reason it's taking precedent right now is because I promised the mayor of our town that it would appear in the local parade. So we got to get it done because that's this weekend. So we're working in the shop today. I spend a lot of time here. My wife would tell you I live here, but realistically I do not. So there is a large portion of every day when I'm not here and I can't keep an eye on the place. So to keep my mind at ease and make sure I'm the only person rummaging through my drawers here, I've just installed SimpliSafe. SimpliSafe is comprehensive security for your entire home or shop for that matter, and it is completely customizable and super easy to install. You can go on their website and pick out all the sensors you do or do not want, all the keypads, all the door alarms. There's stuff on there that I would have never even thought about. Obviously, you can install SimpliSafe anywhere. I think it's typically aimed at your home, but clearly I just installed it in the shop here and could not be happier with it. Your SimpliSafe system is controlled by the app on your phone, and it is super easy and super intuitive to use. Of course, you can use it from anywhere in the world, and you can see right then and there live what's going on at your home or your shop. With the 24/7 live guard protection, monitoring agents can actually see and speak to intruders in your home through your wireless cameras, which can help deter crime before it even happens.
Hey, you! Step away from the toolbox.
So unlike your standard home security systems, SimpliSafe never locks you into a long-term contract and doesn't have any kind of hidden fees or anything like that. It's professional monitoring, and it's available for less than $1 a day. That's less than half the cost of traditional security systems. Installation of the system was an absolute breeze. Everything can be done very easily by yourself, but professional installation is available if you would choose to go that route. Right now, you can save 40% off your new SimpliSafe system when you sign up for Fast Protect monitoring using my custom URL, simplisafe.com/dieselcreek. That's simplisafe.com/dieselcreek. Well, it is not and should not be a priority right now, but I want to get this tarp off the bed. I need to take it off anyways for carrying people in the parade. We should probably worry about getting the truck running first, but something about this thing being on here just makes this thing seem so big and seems like it's taking up the whole shop. So I'm going to take this off of here and hopefully relax my OCD a bit. And all the bungees that were holding it on there. No bueno. Well, we managed to get the top off the bed there, and yeah, I don't know, feel a little bit better about it. Doesn't feel as daunting in here. I think I'm gonna end up taking those wooden sideboards off as well. We've got bigger fish to fry right now. I guess the first place we should start would be to drain what's left of the coolant system, and then we can start removing this front grill guard and pulling out that radiator. Well, I just undid the valve and nothing's coming out. We must be pretty low at this point. All through the winter and this past summer, there's been coolant just laying down here in the bottom of the radiator, so I think it probably all just leaked out, unfortunately. We'll pull the bottom radiator hose, see if anything comes out there. There we go. Just had a mud dauber and that's clogging up the valve. There we go, we got her flowing now. I knew we weren't completely out of coolant. there you have the coolant just about empty out of the block in the radiator there. And there's some nasty stuff in there. I'm 99.9% sure that coolant's not supposed to look like that. So a good thing that we're draining it, and probably should be flushed pretty good before we put any antifreeze back in after we change the radiator. So I got the top clamp loosened on the top radiator hose, and now I just need to bust loose this bolt here and the same one on the other side, and we should be able to get the radiator worked out of there. Oh, and the core support bolts on the bottom of the radiator, of course. Now I can't be sure why, but for some reason, without that fancy brush guard on the front of this truck, it reminds me of one of the Decepticon robots from Transformers. I guess you gotta be careful you don't bend the fan in the process of doing this. Working on this truck is deceptive. It seems like you should be able to get to everything. You can see it, and then when you actually try to reach for it, it is tough to get to a lot of this stuff. Case in point, this bottom radiator hose. The hose is loose, just can't get a good grip on it and yank it off of there. At some point, you just kind of have to bite the bullet and accept the fact that you're going to get covered in coolant. And there's no way to film this for you guys, unfortunately. Well, I think it's coming down to it. We're just going to take the fan off. Oh my goodness. I removed radiators out of much bigger trucks that were much easier to remove. Goodness. There we go. It was just glued in this one spot where you couldn't get a tool into until you had it leaning out here like this. Tearing up our little rubber deal on there. There we go. My goodness, that was a fight. Are we still... Oh, there's a grounding. Why is the radiator grounded? Why is that a thing? Ah! Finally, we are free. That took way longer than it should have. That seems to be a running theme through all of my projects. Well, with that heater out of the way, we can actually see the injection pump now. And hopefully I don't have to take the whole fender off, but that's definitely possible. All right, I just took all the nuts off of this pump cover here. Underneath this cover, we should have the gears that drive the injection pump. Should probably be some timing dots there that we need to confirm are in the right spot. I believe there's also a timing mark on the flywheel, and then there's one underneath a cover over there on the pump. Hopefully we can get this off of here without destroying the gasket. So I don't see any timing dots on our gears here. Normally you would have two dots. There would be one on each gear, and you would line those dots up, and that would be how you keep the pump in time. Since we don't have any dots, what it must be is a friction fit gear. So basically you have these three bolts here that clamp down onto a hub which friction fits onto the shaft. So what could theoretically happen is the shaft could spin inside of that hub and put the pump out of time. So I guess the way that we would know if that's happened or not is we're going to have to put the engine in time and see if our other marks on the pump line up as well. Okay, I think I see our timing marks here. Yep, and there's our little indicator needle. Probably need to back this up and clean off those marks better so we can see what we're looking at. There's about 6 pounds of paint on this dampener here. And there's several timing marks, so I don't know which one we need to use. Can you guys see those timing marks right there? So that one says LDS 465, the one below it says LD 465. The one below that says LDS 427. Nothing about an LDT engine, which is what this one is. This is an LDT 465. So it took me some research and reading to finally figure out that the LDS timing mark is the same for the LDT timing mark. So we'll crank the engine over until we line it up with our timing mark on the side of the cover here, and then we'll check our pump time. All right, right on the money. Well, we just pulled the valve cover off so that we can verify that the engine is in the correct position to be timed. So you have to time this engine when the number 1 cylinder is in the top dead center position. So an easy way to tell that is to pop the valve cover off and you can get to the rocker arms here. Neither one of these should be under pressure. They are not. So that's how you know we are top dead center. So we need to take off this little rectangular cover down here. There's 4, look like 7/16 head bolts. Pull those out of there and there should be some timing marks we can see. This is another one of those areas on this truck where you can see the bolts very easily, and it looks like they should be easy to get to, but they are still a pain. Tough to get your arm in anywhere. In fact, I couldn't be doing this the way I am right now if I didn't have the radiator out. There we go. That timing mark is right on the money. So I think that means that the pump timing is on, but I believe we can still check the hydraulic head, and there's a chance that the hydraulic head timing is not right. Alright, so our last timing mark is underneath this shut-off cover here on the side of the pump. We had this off in one of the previous videos because I was trying to make sure that the shut-off was not partially engaged, causing us issues. I guess I'm going to have to use a mirror to see inside of there because there's no way for me to get the camera or my head inside of there. Well, I just got off the phone with Clint from CNC Equipment. I'm consulting with him because he is an expert on these trucks. I think he told me he's bought and sold over like 500 of these things, so he knows them pretty well. He told me a while back kind of what to look for here and what his suspicions were, and with these timing marks, I was able to confirm it finally. So we have our dampener timing mark is lined up where it's supposed to be. The timing mark down there on the advance section of the pump is lined up where it's supposed to be. And the last section that we need to have lined up, there's a small timing mark on a gear in the pump down here with an arrow pointing to it. And it needs to be lined up where it's supposed to be. So I don't know how well you guys can see it on camera. I did manage to get some paint on that gear tooth so you can see it, and it is lined up right on the money right now. So that means all 3 timing marks are aligned the way they're supposed to be. But, as I believe I mentioned earlier in the video, this engine has to be set to top dead center on number 1. So right now, both of these rockers on the number 1 cylinder should be loose, and they are not. Somebody timed this engine to top dead center on number 6. So what actually happens here is the hydraulic head on the pump, this little round unit right here that has these 4 bolts holding it down, that unit is basically 180 degrees at a time. And according to Clint, this is the only engines he's ever seen that'll run 180 degrees out. So basically, we kind of lucked out here, and he was right. The head is out of time, and we're going to have to take it off of there, spin the engine over until we're top dead center on number 1 with our timing marks lined up again, and then we'll have to reinstall that head. Hopefully once the hydraulic head is back installed, we can go ahead and bleed the fuel system out, and this thing should fire right up. Fingers crossed. So let's get to it. We're going to have to remove the fuel lines from the hydraulic head. We're going to have to remove the injector lines from the head, and then the 4 hold down bolts. And I believe I have it in the position right now that it'll come out, because this thing will only come out if it is in the correct position. Well, we got all the lines out of the way and the securement bolts off. Nuts, I should say. This thing should just lift up out of here. Oh, it's got some gravity to it. And there we go. That's what we were looking for right there. So this is actually according to the tag, United Technologies diesel systems. I've never heard of those. Clint says that was a government contractor, so they just made these to the AMBAC specs, which is what normally is in here, is an AMBAC hydraulic head. But I guess there are Chinese copies out in the market these days. This one here, still made in the USA, what we like to see. These cameras do not like to focus on small stuff, so I'll try my best here, but I doubt you're going to be able to see. There's a very, 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 very faint line down the length of this tooth. If you can see it at all, it's because we identified it earlier and put paint on it as best we could at the time in the truck. Now that it's out here, I'm going to go ahead and put some better paint on it. I was just cleaning it up with some brake clean, making it so that the paint will actually stick. So I'm going to take a paint marker, we're going to hit that tooth right there, that way it's highlighted and we know for sure which tooth it is, because it's very, very hard to see in the truck. All right, I think we're in the right position. Yep, both valves are loose. Got our dampener timing mark aligned. Yep, this timing mark is aligned in the pump housing. So we should be pretty good to drop the head back in now. When we do put the head back in there, we need to make sure that we keep the identified tooth, the timing tooth, pretty much 90 degrees right in line this way with the front of the pump housing. Talking to Clint and watching some tactical repair videos on YouTube here, that tooth timing on the hydraulic head could be off slightly. It doesn't necessarily line up perfectly, but it's usually pretty close. Well, here goes. Got all the timing marks on the engine lined up. Hopefully gonna drop this bugger in here without knocking the timing off on it. Yeah, so she's not quite dropping down on there. Might have to bar the engine just a little bit. There we go, that feels right. So we'll get the mirror now and check and see if our gear timing's right down there. I've used a mirror more on this project than I think I ever have in my life. Yeah, she's right on the money. I like it. I'll put the bolts in, crank it down, and just double check it after that. I think we're good. Double check the timing. Hopefully you guys can see that bright orange tooth staring us in the face. She's right where she needs to be. We can put everything back together. Well. We got her all buttoned up except for this shutdown cover, and the reason I didn't put that on yet is because I'm not real sure about this part right here. So this is your shutdown rod, lever, thingy, mabobber. It basically, it regulates, like it's kind of like a throttle shaft, but it also shuts fuel down to the engine. And it's really difficult to get into the correct position. And once you get it into the correct position, it's really difficult to get the throttle arm or the shutdown arm. Can't remember what that arm does, but it has to go through that thing once it's seated. And you have to be a contortionist and a miracle worker to, you know, get yourself situated in there to do any of that work. And then it doesn't want to cooperate with you anyway. So I'm unsure if that thing is seated properly, and what could happen if it's not is basically the engine gets full throttle and would basically run away. And, you know, without the thing working right, you can't even pull the engine shutdown lever and kill the fuel. The only way to really check and see if that's right at this point, the only way to check it is to crank it over and see what happens. We're gonna have to bleed the injectors. I have all the injector lines loose up at the injectors. Of course, we don't still have a radiator in there, but I can crank it over, bleed the injectors, and just to confirm that this thing may or may not run, we are going to try to fire it up. Should that fuel thingamabobber over there be in the wrong position and not doing its job, I have disconnected the intake here, and I can block off the intake with a block of wood and should be able to shut the engine down manually that way. If all that happens, things are going to be getting pretty western, so I'm going to set you guys up on a tripod and hope for the best. Well, I'm going to jump in the cab and start cranking on her. You guys holler whenever you start seeing fuel coming out these injectors. I see fuel. Not on all of them yet, but we got a few going. We'll crank those ones down. We'll give her one more rotation. Looks like we got fuel on all 6 lines, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish cranking down these lines, and then we're gonna send it. Hopefully the engine doesn't take off like a rocket and go into low Earth orbit. Well, I am genuinely very concerned about the way this is gonna turn out, but fingers crossed, I think we're okay. I'm gonna go ahead and crank it. Hopefully it just fires up beautifully and everything's nice. Remember, since I've owned this truck, I have not been able to get it to start at all without ether. So let's see what happens. Contact! Better now. All right, I gotta shut her down. We don't have any coolant. How you like that? Man, am I excited. Coming down the home stretch here on the Deuce. We are ready to put the radiator back in. Clint from CNC Equipment stopped by to drop off something unrelated the other day, and I had him drop me off this lower radiator hose because during the vigorous process of removing the radiator, I accidentally put a hole right through the bottom rad hose here, which was pretty frustrating, but it happened. So I'm gonna try to keep from getting a little rammy-jammy in the reassembly process here. Hopefully all goes smooth, but first thing we gotta do now is pop this old hose off, pull the spring out of it. This spring just keeps the hose from collapsing under that bend, and slap the new one on, slap the radiator in, and hopefully we can take this thing for a drive. The bond that radiator hoses form is pretty impressive. Until you crack the whole thing loose, one little section can hold you up. Got the spring jammed into the new hose here. Got the clamp on backwards from the way it was, so we should be able to get a ratchet on it easy. Radiator time. Oh, things are coming together. I got the radiator all tossed back in and buttoned up. I just have to put some water in it. I'm not going to put antifreeze in it right away, just so we can check for leaks. Plus, you guys saw that coolant come out of there. It was nasty, so it wouldn't hurt to run some water through it, flush the system out, and then we will winterize it after this parade journey tomorrow. So time is really crunching by. Got tied up with some other things during the week, and it is 11 o'clock on Friday. The parade starts at, I got to be down there by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So less than 24 hours away, we need to have this thing in the parade. But we are coming down pretty close here. The last thing I believe I need to do is do the fuel density compensator bypass, which is a mouthful, but basically we just need to redirect some fuel lines. So I'm going to try to give you the quick breakdown on what's going on here. Basically, to bypass this thing, all we got to do is take this main fuel line, plug it into the hydraulic head right here, cap off this line and this port right here, and we have to do the other end of this line, which is down here, if you guys can see that. So I think I have everything to do it. Let's start taking things apart. Get this one out of the way. Now I can go ahead and pull this T-fitting off just to get some more room going in here. Alright, I believe we should be able to get rid of this T-fitting. We'll just trade it out for a nice plug. Alright, so this is the fuel line that went from our filter housing down to the fuel density compensator. I've pulled it off, and we're going to reuse these threaded ends. So I've already clipped the other side here, pulled it off. I've got some new line here, and we just have to put a new line together the same way as the old one. We slide on your nut, slide on your ferrule. I also went ahead and got these inserts that go in here, so we know we have a nice good seal. So we should be able to just thread this back into the elbow on the filter housing now. So we got this fitting started up into our elbow. Might as well take full advantage of the situation since we don't have another end on there. We can slide a ratchet wrench up in here, make quick work of this fitting. All right, I think we're tight enough. Let's hit the key and see if we start spraying fuel anywhere. Well, from what I can see, I think we're all good. Well, it's time. I got the radiator full of as much water as she will suffer for right now. We got to crank this thing up and let it suck down and fill up the block. So since we've been into all the fuel lines and everything, we probably have some air in the system, so it's probably going to take a little bit of cranking to fire up. It may fire up like instantly and then die, or not fire up at all. So let's find out. Sweet! This is awesome. I'm like a kid at Christmas right now. This thing is too cool for school. I'm really excited. Definitely never ran this good before. Big thanks to Clint from CNC Equipment for setting me on the right path to get this thing running right. Basically, I'm just gonna let this thing sit here and run for a while, come up the temperature, make sure we don't have any air pockets in the cooling system or any leaks in the fuel system or cooling system. And once that's established, we'll take this thing for a rip. All right, it's all up to temp. Everything looks good. Let's take this thing for a rip. This thing is sweet. This is not even the same truck that I was driving all those months ago. I mean, it's a no-brainer now. Of course, the timing being out 180 degrees is gonna make it run like crap, but you never would have thought that was possible. This thing is running mint now. Well, hot diggity, guys. I think she's ready for the parade. mean, just look at that thing. What a beast. I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning of this video, the future for this truck was very uncertain. I really didn't think that I was too in love with it. I thought I was pretty sure that I was gonna kick this thing down the road and then, you know, move on to different projects. The first couple videos we did on this unit, you know, driving it around, I was very disappointed with the performance of it. It really didn't blow my socks off, or I didn't fall in love with it at all. Since we have the timing issue resolved, man, this truck's fun to drive. I have an absolute blast with it. So ended up throwing the canopy back on it here after the parade, and basically I'm gonna use this thing just as a place to store some stuff up off the ground and out of the weather here for the winter. The truck will be under the roof, but might as well take advantage of that storage space in there as well. So earlier in the video, we did fill up the radiator with straight water, and as we're coming into the colder time of year, as you guys can tell, the leaves are all coming off the trees here. So I went ahead and switched it out and put some good antifreeze back in this thing. So I think I have all the bubbles out of the system. I think we're good to go, but I'm gonna go ahead and take her for a little drive here, make sure all the air bubbles are out of the system and that we're running right around 180 degrees where we should be. And yeah, it's just a good day for a drive. Well guys, I for one am super happy to have this old girl back up and running. I wish there was some more time left in this year to be taking this thing out and going to some shows, but we're kind of into that time of year where that's not going to happen anymore. Leaves are coming off the trees in a hurry, it's raining a lot, and it's going to be getting real cold real quick here. So I think we're going to put this thing to bed, let it sleep all winter. I think we're going to hit up some events with this truck next year though. Like I said, I'm quickly falling in love with it now that it actually runs properly and goes down the road and everything. If you guys like content on the Army truck here, I did just pick up another one of these trucks in a little bit different configuration at the auction a couple weeks ago. So be looking forward to that because that truck does not currently run either. So we're going to have to do some diagnostic and hopefully we can get that one fired back up and on the road as well. If you guys would, do me a big favor, hit that thumbs up button down below the video. It really helps out the channel. It doesn't take but a second of your time. Also, if you like the channel and would like to help support it in a little more direct fashion, head on over to dieselcreek.com. Pick yourself up some sweet swag over at the store. We've got hats, t-shirts, hoodies, sticker packs, beer koozies. We got it all over at the store. That's dieselcreek.com. Link is down in the description. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.